Buenos dias, chicas. I'm sorry I can't be here with you today, but I wanted to explain to you a little bit about a project you will be doing. You're going to start this project today, and you will continue it on Friday in class. And I wanted to make sure that you guys understood the instructions as best you can. What you'll be doing is you'll be flipping a lesson. I went over, from the other class, I went over the different verb issues that they had in the indicative, and I identified that there were several people who wanted to review irregular verbs, whether they're irregular verbs in the present tense, the preterite tense, and so I thought that what I would have you guys do an activity where you could do that review, but in a way that's a little more interesting than having me just lecture to you about the different conjugation forms. So what you will be doing is you get to flip a lesson. That's right. Prof is very lazy, and she's going to make you do her own job. And you're going to flip a lesson, so you'll be creating a video to review an irregular conjugation. And it's going to be very controlled. It's a very small topic, so it doesn't have to be extensive. Ideally, this video is between 1 and 2 minutes. It will center around a theme that this is where you can bring in your creativity. Something that the verbs that tend to have this irregularity should kind of evoke an idea of what kind of theme could provide context for your lesson. It should include images and color, and it will also have a practice activity for students to put their new information in practice. You can see right here that there are many online tools that you can use. StudySpanish.com, WordReference.com will have a lot of information for you when you do your investigation as to how to conjugate these verbs. I would suggest using a Google presentation so that you can work on the same presentation simultaneously with a partner. You should have Screencast-O-Matic is what I'm using to flip this lesson right here. You're going to upload it to YouTube, and we're going to want to also be able to embed a link on the YouTube video so students can reach the Google form, which will be where you collect their information for the practice activity. So what you're probably interested in is knowing, well, okay, what's my topic? So you should have received from the substitute a numbered card, and that is going to tell you who your partner is. It's also going to tell you what your topic is. So if you are in group 1, you get to review the irregular verbs for the perfect tenses. And these are the same irregular verbs for every perfect tense. It could be present perfect, pluperfect, conditional perfect, future perfect. These are the irregular ones. And the most common ones are represented by this expression here, RevMac PhD. If you're in group 2, you're going to have the SCO verbs, and these are verbs where they end in a vowel and CER or vowel and CIR. An example is conocer. The yo form is conozco in the present. Group 4 has go verbs like pongo. Group 5 has yo verbs like incluyo. Group 6 are ho verbs, which are verbs that end in GER or GIR, escoger, etc. So I have some notes here to give you an idea of what verbs you will be covering. So you also should have received from your substitute a planning sheet, and this is what you'll be working on at the end of the period today. So you should write down what your theme is here, where it says Nuestro tema es, and you've got 3 steps which you should be working on today so that you have it ready to go for class on Friday. The first step is research. So if you want to find out what verbs are like, are SCO verbs or go verbs or ho verbs or stem changing verbs in the preterite. What you can do is go to wordreference.com, and I'm going to show you where you can find this information. So I am going to model this with the verbs that have accents in the present tense. You may not know that there are verbs that when you conjugate them must have accents in the present tense. And so I happen to know that the verb espiar, which means to spy, has an accent in the conjugation. So I'm going to go to word reference, and up here at the top of word reference, you see where it says verb conjugators. I'm going to click on where it says Spanish, and I can look up how any verb is conjugated. So I'm going to put in espiar, and I'm just focused on the present tense. You can see here it's yo espío, tú espías, él espía, nosotros espiamos, no accent. Ellos espían. So the things that are in blue are the things that are weird, meaning that they have that accent. But I can also see here on the left-hand side a whole bunch of verbs that have the same pattern of conjugation. And I'm going to go through these verbs and pick out the ones I like best. And I like the verb espiar because that's exciting. And I like esquiar because that's fun. And looking around, ooh, confiar, that means to trust. That's a pretty good word. I'm not going to pick totally weird words like chirriar, which means to squeak. I don't think that's a very useful word. Cablegrafiar, to send a message by cable. I don't think that's a super important verb. So I'm going to pick the verbs that I think make most sense. Guiar is a good verb. Criar is a good verb. These are all verbs that I could actually see myself using. So I pick those verbs. I'll write down the verbs right here, the ones I think are most useful. And actually, yeah. And then I will, put down the conjugation here. So it's just present tense. And I know that espio, espias, espia, espiamos, espian is the pattern. So I'll have that information. And now I'm ready to start planning. I've picked out my verbs, and I'm going to plan my presentation. And I think it's a good idea to pick a theme that kind of provides context for your presentation. It's also a place where you can be a little creative. So, like I said, I picked the verb espiar. I also liked confiar and esquiar. There's another set of verbs that end in uar, that have accents as well. So I'm going to pick actuar, which is to act, and continuar. So those are my 5 verbs. Notice I'm not using 20 verbs. I'm only using like top 5 verbs for my examples. And all of these verbs make me think of spies and international intrigue. And so I thought, I know, Mission Impossible, that's going to be my theme. So I'm going to use a Mission Impossible theme. There's information that I want that's important to know is I noticed when I wrote down the conjugation that those accents show up in the same spot as that boot verbs have stem changes, and it's in the yo, to, el, and ellos forms. So I think that's a good connection to make for my friends in class. I also know that not every verb that ends in IAR has an accent. For example, cambiar doesn't. So that's probably information I want to add in. This was information that I would have gotten when I was doing my research. So once I figured out what it is I want to teach, which verbs, the theme for the context, and what is the most important information, I'm going to organize the order in which I want to present my information. So I'm going to start off with sort of like an introduction slide to kind of set the stage with a theme. And then I'm going to talk about like what the endings are for verbs that have accents. And then maybe here talk about talk about how some verbs that have those same endings may not have accents, and how it's really based on the pronunciation. And then in slide 3, I might show examples of words that almost look the same except for the accent, and that how it's based on pronunciation. Maybe have an activity where students, as they're watching, have to figure out if I would have an accent on that word or not. Then I might, for 4, I think I'm going to put like show how those verbs are conjugated using the conjugation grid. And then for the last ones, just show examples where I get to be creative around my theme. Okay. So I haven't actually built my presentation yet, by the way. I'm just sort of planning it out. Step 3, I'm now going to begin with the end in mind, and I'm going to think about, well, what's the quiz that I want to give my friends? What do I want them to be able to do? And I think I'm going to choose that maybe they do some multiple choice. They have to pick which is the verb and which is not the verb. They might have to fill in the blank, conjugate. They might have to change, have them change a sentence that's in the yo form into the nosotros form. So I can see that they know how to put an accent or not put an accent accordingly. This is as far as you're getting for today and for homework. You're not going to go further than this. We're actually making the stuff online. We're going to work on that on Friday. So what you should do now is actually take a look at the presentation that I made, which is going to be, like I said, about Mission Impossible. And it's about verbs that have accents on them. So go ahead and take a look at this, and then you can also do the activity on a Google form to practice what you learn. And this will serve as a model for what I'm hoping you guys will produce for me. Thank you very much.